So we're back then.
We are. Little break.
Little break, but we are renewed. We're back for the whole of season 3. We'll do something a little bit separately to tell everyone what's going to be coming in season 3, but we just want to talk about our kind of up-and-coming episode. But what I do want to ask, first one back as a married man.
Feels exactly the same. People keep asking me, because obviously, to our listener, since we've last recorded Band of Brothers,
yeah,
my dad passed away, which was very sudden, 2-3 weeks before I got married. So I've had a few life events, to say the least.
Which explains the small hiatus
we've
had. But it's worked out, hasn't it?
It worked out, but I'll come back to my dad on this choice. It was all pre-planned. It's just the way it happened. It's been.
But I wasn't sure if he was still allowed to play out or not. Being a married man now, I was thinking.
Well,
I was walking up thinking I might knock on the door, and Jackie said he's not allowed out.
Not allowed out. I'm getting used to the ring. Like, I've never wore a piece of jewellery in my life ever. So, but I do find myself sit there just twiddling it.
Well, I know the listener can't see this, but mine's stuck.
Yeah, yours is proper welded on,
so mine's
isn't
been
it?
Welded on for coming up to 20 years this in September. It's not going
I can't
anywhere.
believe you've been married 20 years.
Yeah, because I was one of the first out of my group of friends. I was called Frodo because I was the only one with the ring.
Only with the ring, yeah. 20 years though.
Yeah, it's scary, isn't it? And it's funny because that 20 years gone so quickly, and the show we're going to talk about spans so many decades as well. So should we get right into it?
Let's go.
Hello and welcome to Watch It If You Can. My name is Dave.
My name is Liam.
This podcast is all about box sets we've created of our favourite films and TV shows. Some you've seen, some you haven't, and others you may never want to watch. However, we can say, if you've never seen Saving Private Ryan, find it, take it home. All we want to do is chat on about these films and TV shows we love so dearly, and maybe, just maybe, you should watch it if you can. Liam?
Dave?
You alright?
We are back.
We are. Boxset 3. Back with a vengeance. I was trying to come up with titles, wasn't I? It was like Boxset 3. Pod Harder.
Pod Harder. I like Pod Harder. Pod Harder.
I can't remember some of the others, but we were trying to come up with like a title.
We had a few, didn't we? Yeah.
First question then for Boxset 3, episode 1. What is it?
Okay, so there's a little bit of symmetry because cast your mind back to the last episode, Band of Brothers. At the end of the show, we discuss if you like this, you'll like this. And the last show I mentioned on the episode was Our Friends in the North. So to kick off Boxset 3, it's Our Friends in the North.
We've come full loop.
Yeah. So it's a 1996 BBC 2 drama. It was 9 episodes. It follows 4 friends as they find their way through their lives from the 60s right through to the 90s, all with a backdrop of real political and cultural events.
So why have you chosen it today?
As it turned out, this is my dad's favourite show ever. He just loved this programme. It's one of the best things. So we'd already planned on doing this, and like I said, my dad passed away, and he passed away about 6 weeks ago now, but the Monday night he passed away, he was here on the Friday night, and we were sat in the garden, and we were actually talking about it, because I was literally in the middle of watching it.
So you told him we were going to do it? Or you told me you were watching it?
Yeah, so, and we were just discussing it, because it's been a long time since I've seen it, and the first time I saw it was in my dad's way back when it was first released in 1996, wasn't it? So, yeah, and also, my dad influence. My dad popped up in a lot of the podcasts, like my love of films, my love of TV, my love of music
Yeah.
has all stemmed from my dad. So I feel like it seems a nice honour to be start off this box set with my dad's favourite show.
Yeah, it's so weird how it sort of worked out, because like I say, this was always planned, this
Yeah.
episode, wasn't it? We always said it was going to be this, and I hadn't seen it. Which considering the cast that it is, and considering I watch pretty much every BBC drama and ITV one, so when you told me about it and obviously mentioned it was dad's, this, like I say, this has all been pre-planned. And
Yeah. The only thing, and I don't know why, I never told my dad about the podcast.
oh, at all?
No, I don't know why.
Because your mum knows, doesn't she? Because she
Yeah.
hasn't quite got a grip
No,
with
my
what
mum
it is.
doesn't know
yeah.
what a podcast is. She's just
my
like...
mum's the same. They know we do it.
But my dad literally lived for Radio 4. All he'd have, so he did listen to podcasts.
Right.
And we always spoke about what you're watching. I've been watching this, been watching that. I don't know why I never told him about the podcast. I don't know. Like Jackie said, why didn't you tell? Because I told her. I was like, because we were doing the episode. I said, she's like, well,
is it because did we talk about anything he wouldn't have really have been interested in?
Really? Because my dad was there in quite a few of the stories. Like, he took me to see Young Guns when pictures, and when I saw the sign for Young Guns.
And was it Stand By Me where you're talking about?
Yeah, it was the
like
video shop next door to his house. Yeah, and like just my dad is a great lover of TV, film, music, and that's I've took that off him. So yeah, it's for me dad, this one.
Oh, so it's got to be a good one. No pressure then on me to be a good host this week then.
Yeah.
The cast then is pretty unbelievable. I don't know if we're going to have time to cover everyone. I know you're going to cover some of the main ones. So if you can tell our listener who is in Our Friends in the North.
Okay, so we're going to start off with Gina McKay. She plays Mary. She's literally done so much. Like all the guys I'm going to mention have got such a body of work, but she is known from Line of Duty and The Bodyguard, which are the same writers, aren't they? And she's also been in the Forsyth saga with Damian Lewis. A little callback to Band of Brothers.
I know what you're going to say now, yeah.
Incidentally,
we were there.
There was quite a lot of scenes filmed in Liverpool Cricket Club with the pavilion as the backdrop, because it's the oldest cricket pavilion, and we were there a few weeks ago because that's where we had our wedding party. So a nice little loop around. And speaking of which, she's also been in the film In the Loop, the Amanda Iannucci one. Just listen, I didn't mean I just saw it. It's next on my thing. She's been in Notting Hill as well, and Atonement.
Yeah, they're the ones I've got. The Bodyguards, and what was the other BBC show, Line of Duty?
Yeah.
Obviously, again, coming back to how have I not seen this show when I watch all the BBC stuff.
We've also got Christopher Eccleston, like one of the greatest actors around at the moment. He plays Nicky. Obviously, he did Cracker, Hillsborough, Doctor Who. He's been in Thor 2, but we forget about that. And he was also in G.I. Joe as well. That was pretty dismal as well,
he was,
wasn't it?
Yeah, he was the main bad guy. I've forgotten his name now.
I picked out a film you should really dig out, really early one, 1991, called Let 'Em Have It. It's a true story over a guy called Derek Bentley, who was a young man who had learning difficulties. I think he was one of the last persons to actually be executed for committing a crime in this country. But there's a lot of story behind it. Was he even guilty? And I think it's one of the reasons why it actually abolished execution in this country, the story. So It's set in the 50s, in May 1991. It's Let 'Em Have It. Really good. Like, I think it was one of Eccleston's first big breakout roles.
So obviously Doctor Who is like the one that he's probably most famous for now, isn't he?
Yeah.
And he did one season. But I think as we go along, there's a lot more links to Doctor Who as well, and we kind of realise, but as we go for the cast. But the ones I picked out, he's got a small but kind of pivotal role in the others, which I don't think you've watched because you're not a big sort of horror fan film, are you, with Nicole Kidman. And 28 Days Later, I don't think you've watched because that's a zombie movie, but you should watch it. And then he was in The Leftovers.
He was in Heroes as well.
He was in Heroes.
I forgot about that as well. And also
True Detective.
Season 4, yes. So that's not enough. So who else? It's Jodie Foster.
Jodie Foster she's in the new series, yeah.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
But isn't he in the new series? Or was he in the last one?
I think he was in the first one, wasn't he?
I don't know.
I have to check.
I'll have to dig that one back out. But yeah, Chris Rexon, absolute legend. We've also got Daniel Craig, who played Geordie. You might know him from James Bond.
I think I've heard of him. Heard of James Bond.
Yeah. I've picked out Layer Cake for one of Daniel Craig's. I love Layer Cake. And I love Knives Out. And I love the new one, the little cameo with Hugh Grant.
Yeah.
You're not going to give it away. It's just.
So I've just said it. I've just spared it out. It's been out for months now.
Yeah,
It's Christmas.
So basically, it's implied that
it's his husband.
It's his husband,
which is genius, isn't it?
Amazing little cameo by Hugh Grant. But one that may have not seen is Lucky Logan with Adam Driver. Absolutely brilliant.
You told me to watch that. I haven't seen it. I've gone with Road to Perdition. With Tom Hanks, he's really good in that. I've gone with Munich, which is the Spielberg movie.
I forgot he's in that as well.
And I've also gone with, it because a lot of people don't like it, and it's not that bad. But Cowboys and Aliens with him and Harrison Ford. It's a Jon Favreau movie. It's definitely worth checking out. It's not as bad as you think.
With
Olivia Wilde's in it as well.
The guy who did Family Guy, Seth.
No, you're thinking of
I know which one.
The Western cartoon.
Yeah.
This generally wasn't meant to be the big blockbuster action movie of the summer, and it did flop. But it's not that bad. It's worth. I'd watch it.
Who else have we got in here? We've got Mark Strong, another amazing actor. He played Tosca. He's been in everything from TV, Sharp, Prime Suspect, Band of Gold. Films wise, he's got a hell of a list. Stardust, Kingsman, Rock and Roller, Kick-Ass, Cruella. The one I always go back to is Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy.
That's what I've got. I've got the exact same ones. The only one I haven't got, I have that you didn't, he was the bad guy in Sherlock Holmes, the first Robert Downey Jr.
Yeah,
one.
Of course, yeah. And
he's everywhere, isn't he?
As well, yeah. And of course, he was the voice of coronavirus.
He was the voice of coronavirus?
No, all the adverts. Stay home.
Was that Mark Strong?
Mark Strong, yeah.
I really want him to be Professor X in the Marvel movies.
I love him. I just think he's an amazing actor.
Really good.
Yeah. And then the rest of the cast it's just a who's who of British royalty when it comes to acting. So we've got Peter Vaughan, who plays Felix, who's Christopher Eccleston's character Nicky's his dad. You will know him from Game of Thrones, but also Porridge. If you remember Porridge.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was in Porridge for quite a few years. His wife, Frida Dowie, Florrie, she's been in all sorts. Upstairs, Downstairs was a classic British drama. And she was also the nun in The Omen.
Oh, really? Was she?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't get onto that at all.
Bit of a random one. Who else we got? We got Alan Armstrong. He played Austin Donahue, who was the ex-council leader, who was amazing character. Yeah, again, he's been in everything from Downton Abbey, Van Helsing's franchise. He was in Braveheart, which I forgot. He was in Braveheart.
Oh, I don't remember him being in that.
Don't know if he's got a big role, but he's in Breeders, the series with Martin Freeman.
That's the only one I wrote down.
I've never seen it.
So Breeders is brilliant, and I think the 4th season's just started this week, and I think it's the final season. He plays Martin Freeman's dad. Yeah, he's like the granddad in it. It's one of the best shows on TV. It's quite hard. I don't want to say hard to watch because it's funny, but a lot of the stories, I think if you've got young kids especially, you relate to so much of it. There's some things obviously that are ramped up for TV, but it's a brilliant show. But just coming back to David Bradley, just because the mention with Doctor Who, and I'm going to put ones that I know you won't have watched. The Strain was a TV series about vampires. Taking over David Bradley, sorry.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
He was next on my list.
Oh, sorry, go on, sorry.
David Bradley.
David Bradley. You do your David Bradley, sorry.
So we've also got David Bradley, who stars as Eddie Wells. Again, another Game of Thrones. Everyone's been in Game of Thrones. I picked out, he's been in everything. He's also in the Harry Potter franchise as well, but Afterlife, the Ricky Gervais one.
Yeah, he is in that, isn't he?
He's his dad.
Yeah.
I love really sad ending when he goes into the home after his dad had gone. It's like,
it's when he follows him on the bike, isn't it? At the funeral. That's so sad.
It's really good. He's an absolute legend, David Bradley.
But David Bradley is in so much that he's got so many links to the other characters. So the Strain is just one I know you haven't watched, but the listeners should watch, because it's a vampire TV series. I can't remember how many seasons there is, but it's worth watching. Obviously in Harry Potter, with David Tennant was in Harry Potter as well. In The Responder,
of course, with Martin Freeman again.
Martin Freeman. In Broadchurch, with David Tennant again. And he played the original Doctor, William Hartnell, in the 50th anniversary special, and then played Doctor Who, that Doctor, in the Doctor Who series as well.
He's an amazing actor.
Yeah, he's in Hot Fuzz and World End as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's loads of links to, like, you've got Christopher Eccleston and then David Bradley, and then David Bradley's got loads of links to David Tennant, and then was in Doctor Who himself as the Doctor, as the first Doctor.
Oh, that's cool. I'm not big Doctor Who.
You're not up to date, are you, on the Doctor? Yeah. So yeah, he come back in the Peter Capaldi ones as well.
And if that's not enough, we've also got Malcolm McDowell, who plays Benny. He's a great character. He's the gangster, isn't he? He is famous for Clockwork Orange. It's one of them. It's not a great film, but everyone should watch that film. It is one of Stanley Kubrick's, obviously. It's a hard watch, but it's a really good film. What else has he been in? He was, of course, in a couple of episodes of Community.
Yeah, which we've done on the series.
And he was in Entourage.
See, I still haven't seen that.
Oh, Entourage is really good. I'd pick that one out.
Did you notice he was in an episode of Frasier as well?
Yes.
Yeah. Another episode of the podcast.
Yeah. And last but not least, there's loads of the cast is massive, but the only other one I've noticed is David Schofield. Now, he's one of those actors that we've spoke about who's in so many things.
The list is too long,
it's
isn't it?
Bonkers. So he plays Detective John Solway. A couple of things. He was in a couple of the Pirates of the Caribbean films, which we've also done on a previous podcast, and he's also in Gladiator.
He was, yeah. But again, another link to the cast. There's a series on, I think it's on Netflix now, Safe House, with Christopher Eccleston.
It's like, to be fair, when you've got such a big cast, there's always going to be a lot of overlap around. But yeah,
definitely. Right. So, massive cast, all amazing, all got on to even bigger things than this. Who's your favourite character or performance?
I've got character and performance, because I like them both. My favourite character is Geordie. I just think I love his story, how he, that difficult relationship he had with his dad. He goes off to London, he gets involved in a bit of this, a bit of that. Good looking lad, Daniel Craig, isn't he? And then
is he though? Is he? He's better looking now than I think he is in this.
Yeah, definitely.
I think
he has matured, hasn't he? Yeah.
He aged into a better looking man, but I
know he's saying
just not my type.
I don't mind a bit of Daniel Craig. But then obviously there's the story where he's homeless, he's an alcoholic, and it's I just think Geordie's story amongst all the other characters, it's the one I really loved.
He goes through the most, doesn't he, of all the characters?
Of all of, his life is it's quite brutal. But I've split character and performance. I know we can flip on this one sometimes, but I've got to say Mark Strong as Tosca is phenomenal. Yeah, he's absolutely brilliant, because he's not the nicest character, but he manages to still bring that side to him that you don't hate him completely. It's
strange, isn't it? Because obviously it starts off literally with him stealing. Yeah, like Christopher Eccleston's girlfriend, Mary, really, because Mary, they are together, aren't they? And he obviously likes her and stuff. But you have a lot of sympathy for him, because I think he's. Do you know what he remind me a little bit of? But maybe not as but like a Del Boy. Yes, he's definitely a trier. Yeah, he wants the best, doesn't he? He wants the big house, which they do get, with his second wife and stuff. So I've got a lot of sympathy for him, but he's not particularly... He goes up and down, doesn't he? Between liking them and feeling sorry for them and hating them.
And that's real life as well. Because it spans over decades. There are periods in your life where in other people's eyes, you're likeable, unlikable, depending on who you are, who you're hanging around with. And I just think Mark Strong, he's such a talented actor. It's such a privilege to have so many great actors in this country, and he is certainly on that list. But what's quite funny is him and Christopher Eccleston could not stand each other.
Oh, really?
Literally, from the minute they met on set, they did not like each other.
So did that work, though? Because really the characters don't get on
I
particularly
think they're both very good actors. I think they both played that on set. Do you know what I mean? Because Christopher Eccleston's been honest. He said in an interview, he said, we just did not get on from day one. Couldn't stand each other, and it was mutual. Do you know what I mean? He says,
isn't that strange? Because like you can imagine like wanting to go for a beer with Christopher Eccleston and Mark Strong and stuff. I can't imagine them not. Because I think because of acting background and stuff, you can't imagine it. They don't get on.
Whereas Daniel Craig and Mark Strong became really close friends. And Daniel Craig is godfather to one of his children.
Oh, is he?
Yeah, Mark Strong. I think it's one of he's got two boys. One of them is, imagine having James Bond as your godfather. Like, yeah. So it was just fascinating. But having said all that, the interview, Christopher Eccleston, he said just did not like him. He said we didn't like each other. It was mutual. We didn't even try. But even Eccleston said, performance-wise, he said, wow. He said. He says you don't have to like someone to just be like, that's some performance. It's
like Moonlight, isn't it? Bruce Willis and Sybil Shepherd absolutely apparently hated each other, didn't they? But if you watch that show, you would never... There's no signs of that, was there?
Yeah. Well, we mentioned it before with the Fraser and Shelley Long relationship, didn't we?
Yeah, you were telling me it didn't really work out, did it? Yeah. Obviously, but then they invited her back. But I don't know. Like I say, everyone... different personalities, aren't they? I'm just surprised by that one. Of all everyone in the cast, if you'd have said who do you think didn't get on, I'd have thought I wouldn't have picked them two.
Well, but like I said, it's just weird because Mark Strong and Daniel Craig have become really good friends, and that's where they first met. So
I'll tell you what, I'll just quickly tell you my favourite character was, because I thought I'll go with someone just totally outside of all that, and I went with Florrie.
The mum. Yeah.
I think she's the most likeable character, and I think she goes through a lot in the series. She finds Nicky's gun, doesn't she? Living with his dad, who can't be easy to live with anyway.
Yeah.
Then obviously becomes ill as the show goes on. She gets attacked, doesn't she?
Yeah. By the young kids, yeah.
And she just reminds me of every nan of that era.
Working class.
Yeah, hard working.
Where did he get they all wear the same coats and the same headscarves?
Yeah.
Do you know what
Trolley.
I mean? Yeah.
And as well, you can tell, obviously, she does everything for the family. She did the shopping, the cooking.
Yeah.
And I just think she's out of everyone in the show, she's the genuinely good person. Because everyone else has got sort of faults. And I'm sure she did.
Yeah.
If you went back and did a prequel. But from what you see in the show, she's the nicest, than the one you'd want to meet, I think.
See, there's a couple of... I loved Austin Donahue, who was the ex-council leader who set up the business now to build the flats. I thought he was a really good character. So the writing is spectacular. I can't remember the guy who wrote it. He was a playwright. He wrote all 9 series. Oh, it's an amazing piece of writing.
So have you got a favourite episode, a favourite scene?
Got a couple of moments. I love all of Geordie's story down in London. That, like, the whole...
That came out of nowhere for me, because I'll tell you what, when you mentioned the show, I thought I won't read too much into it.
Yeah.
I'll just get it up on BBC iPlayer we're going to discuss. But in my head, after the first episode, I thought it was going to be Geordie's going to go down to London, but get into politics in London. And Nicky's going to stay in the north, and it's going to be all about politics in the north and politics in the south. So when Geordie was suddenly working at the strippers and stuff, I was like, oh, this is going somewhere completely different to what I thought was going to happen. But all that stuff, yeah.
One moment I love is where they end up with the Rolls Royce full of porn. Because all the confiscated porn, he can do Benny does the deal where he gets it all back, and he just Rolls Royce full of porn magazines and videos. It's just a great moment. Another little moment is at the beginning of one episode where Tosca's second wife says we should put all our money in stocks and shares.
Yes.
And you just knew what was coming because it was in the 80s, and then the end of the episode is like they just lost the whole lot.
The news is on, isn't it? All about the stock market crash.
But the moment it stays with me is, again, going back to Geordie, after he'd really been struggling, and he set fire to the bed in the hostel, and he gets like a life sentence.
Yeah.
So, and and you could see his realisation when he comes down the door, and the prison guard's like, I didn't even know you could get life for that. It's wrong. When I used to work in the Largo, there's
a bar.
Yeah, it's a bar in town. I used to work in the kitchen. In the day, they used to do like pint a mile for £1. So we just got all the old fellas in, and there used to be this group of old fellas. And there was always this one guy, he was literally like, he obviously had some sort of learning difficulty. He couldn't really have a sentence. He couldn't really get a sentence out of him. He would just latch on to these older guys. He wasn't that old. I'd probably say he must have been in his 50s, something, where all the old guys were like 60s. I remember they used to just sit and drink pint of mild all day. And someone said to me, he said, like little tiny guy, wouldn't think anything. He did life sentence for arson. He set again, weirdly, I think it was a hostel. Like he had troubled teenager, and he set fire to the hostel with him, and he did a life sentence for arson. And when someone pointed that out to me, he was
he obviously didn't though. Well, he got a life sentence.
Yeah, you get a life sentence.
Didn't do it.
But
that's mad, isn't it?
But that life sentence is 20 years. But I think he was in prison for like 20 odd years for setting fire. Really? And he was just the most weird, peculiar, lovely. Like he was just, because you just couldn't have a conversation with him. It was just the yes or no. But he was so unassuming, and he just like, and it always reminds me when I watched that moment where he went down. It reminds me of this guy that I remember from the Largo. And
because when you're watching it, you're thinking, "Oh, that wouldn't happen," but you've got something to relate it to, haven't you? As in that did impact someone.
Also, later on, after he comes out of prison, Geordie, and he's living rough on the streets, and Nicky finds him under the bridge.
With that woman.
It's heartbreaking because he realised, but Geordie doesn't see him. He can't.
Yeah, he's obviously on.
Yeah,
because he's like drunk, drugs, all sorts, and then obviously it's heartbreaking when Nicky goes back and he's not there as well. I just went with the whole miners' strike episode. I just think the whole episode, the build up to the, what eventually turns into sort of like basically fighting with the Maya police. But the scene, I think, within that is David Bradley's character getting forced on the bus.
Yeah.
Because, he turns up to kind of help, and the police force him on. And then when they let them off, he knows something's going to happen, doesn't he? He starts saying to them, be careful, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Because he knows this is like, it was really odd how the police just let them go, and it was just the police were just preparing for, for them to come down and incite it. And what I liked as well was Anthony, who's Tosca's and Mary's son. The policeman gets caught up in it, doesn't he? And
he realised, because they brought in all the police from down south who were just so heavy-handed, because they were literally and they were all getting the money out because they were all on every time. You were Thatcher's army at the time. What's really not really strange, but I think this way it resonates so much with my dad is, my dad was a councillor for a few years when we were in Runcorn, and he was heavily involved in the trade union. He was heavily involved in the miners' strike, and he was. Remember they had like all the riots when Wapping. Remember when we were all on Ping. So my dad was involved. So I think that's why it resonated with my dad. All that, he knew the stories. But we had a weird instance as a kid that we were heading to, my dad worked in Trade Union Centre in Hardeman Street, and they were going on a big march, and my mum was driving me and our Nadia we were still living in Runcorn at the time, driving over, and my mum got stopped by this police officer who wasn't just a police officer, he was like a really, really high up, like detective chief inspector type character, and basically just stopped my mum from going on this march. Because at the time, my mum's dad...
Oh, right. I was going to say, where's this heading? But yeah.
Was the deputy of Liverpool when it was Merseyside County Council.
So they recognised her?
I think... I don't know if my granddad put a word out to say, don't let...
Oh, right, don't let her near.
Don't, because she's going to kids. And he wasn't being funny, the police officer. He pulled my mum over. He was quite...
More advice than...
It was very obvious that he was there to just... He knew which way we were coming, and he just pulled us over and basically kept us there until we missed the bus, so we didn't go on the march. And it was just... Listening to the stories of my dad, what they were involved in, it was the political landscape in the 80s was pretty full on. Do you know what I mean? Like, my dad's convinced our phones were tapped at one point because he was quite high up in the trade unions. They were all blacklisted, the same as they couldn't get a job really anywhere else afterwards. And by the time my dad fell out because he realised, as per usual, corruption rears its head up. And corruption's not just a Tory or a Labour. It's where there's power, there's always corruption. And my dad sort of lost his way, and that's where he ended up bought himself a butty van. He was done with it all.
Went his own path, yeah.
But I think, obviously, with our friends and all, because it's so political, you can tell the right is really resonated with me dad. So I think a lot of it, my dad saw himself in a lot of the story. It
was almost like a documentary to your dad, wasn't it?
Yeah.
The only other bit I think that's worth noting in terms of scene is just that very final scene where they're all together. Just that pause where they all look at each other, because that could have been overlooked, couldn't it? They really could have. They could have missed the trick. It was the
funeral, wasn't it? And you were all there, and you were just in the living room.
Geordie sat at the piano, isn't he? And it was like that. You obviously know it's the last episode as you're watching it, so that's probably the last. As a viewer, that's going to be the last time you see them all together. Yeah. But it was just that little.
It was a lovely moment. Yeah, it was really all just like. It was really well done. They just all one by one all just acknowledged that they were all together. Yeah, a lovely moment.
It spans obviously through the decades, loads of music. Is there any particular song or piece of music that you picked out?
I picked out two. Oh my God, the soundtrack is fantastic. God, there's all sorts in there. And
I wonder where they got the money for the soundtrack, because there's like...
Was the BBC, so I think they would probably have already had deals. And I don't know.
Because there's Beatles songs and all sorts. Yeah. So what's the two you picked?
So All or Nothing by the Small Faces. Just any excuse to just, hands down, great song. And the very last scene, Don't Look Back in Anger by Oasis. I just think is just...
It captured the 90s,
and what's so amazing is the director, because obviously the album was out the year before, so when he were obviously filmed and editing it before, he picked that song from the album as perfect. The week it was aired, Don't Look Back in Anger was number 1 in the charts.
Oh really? Yeah.
So just one of them things how it's worked out. But just that scene, because Geordie just walks across the bridge, doesn't he, in Newcastle, and it just kicks in Don't Look Back in Anger, and it's such a satisfying end, although nothing really happens, but because that's it. Now I think you're right, they probably don't actually...
I don't think you ever get them back together.
No,
it's a perfect song at a perfect time, in a perfect kind of ending as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
So 9 episodes spanning decades, great performances, but what, if anything, would you have done to make it better?
Could be a little controversial.
Oh, I've got a couple of controversial ones.
Okay.
Go on.
I'm not a big fan of Christopher Eccleston's performance.
Oh, wow.
I think it's just... And I don't know if it's the character or his performance. I just, especially the early episodes, I found him a little bit annoying.
But was he meant to be?
That's it. I think he was meant to be very idealistic.
And don't forget that I mean, probably this is probably going to come to what I'm going to say, but they're only 21 at the time.
Yeah.
And I think he's meant to be quite...
I just found him a little bit annoying, the character. But I found,
so it's not his acting.
But I don't know, I feel like Eccleston over...
Because he was just back from America, wasn't he? Yeah, he was all hyped up.
But even the next couple of episodes, I didn't warm to the character or the acting from Christopher Eccleston. I think Christopher Eccleston slightly overdid it a little bit, but I don't know if that was part of, because that was his personality, was meant to be a little, you know, and also which led into the bit, I didn't buy into the bit where he ends up with that group of radicals and the gun and all that. I just didn't buy that.
Because he wasn't that.
Yeah, it was just a bit extreme to suddenly have a machine gun and do a drive-by shooting of an embassy or something.
It was like they wanted a link to those events.
Yeah.
And kind of threw Nicky into it, because out of all the characters, it made sort of more sense he would do it, but it didn't quite fit.
And the burying a gun in the allotment, but then it was never... Because there's a scene later where it's Tosca's son, isn't it, when he was a kid, smashes up something, and the other police officers also got the allotment, the tune, and you think, was that moment where they then were going to find a gun or something, but they didn't. The gun was a bit of a loose end. I don't know, so you take, would you take the gun out, but would you take Nicky out of that situation then? Yeah, I just thought it was a bit, I just didn't buy it.
No, it wasn't for you.
Yeah.
So I've gone with dodgy beards.
Yes.
And obviously...
And Eccleston's most guilty over most of them.
Yeah, you know, I think the wigs are fine.
Yeah, Mark Strong with hair.
Mark Strong.
He's got a lovely head of hair in the area.
And even when he starts receding, those wigs are quite good, but there's some really dodgy beards. And obviously they are a lot older in episode 1 than they really are. I was looking, Daniel Craig is 28.
Yeah.
And he's obviously meant to be playing someone younger than 21, because he says that line, doesn't he, about, you know, you can't even vote yet, you're not 21. And that's when I was like, well, hang on, because I didn't get onto how young they were meant to be. So my question is, would it have worked better with younger actors transforming into Eccleston, Daniel Craig, or were you happy that it's the same actors all the way through?
No, I can buy that. And also, it's because the playwright was a theatre writer. That's not unusual to do in theatre. It's a lot more common to have an actor play the actor right through the ages, because they'll just obviously just have wigs and stuff. I didn't mind it. You could see, obviously, it wasn't great in the early scenes, the early episodes, but apparently there was 2 directors, but the first director was meant to do 5 episodes, and the second director was going to come and do the last 4. The first director left after midway through a couple of episodes he'd filmed, and he had to bring someone else in. So I think there was a little bit of messy bits here and there as well. So I think that, especially the bit about Christopher Eccleston, I said his performance, I think he just needed reining in a little bit. But when you're a 30-year-old trying to portray a 21-year-old, you might go a little bit over the top and stuff.
I think the thing as well is, because it was scanned so many decades and scanned and including so many people, I didn't quite feel when him and Mary sort of fall out, you didn't really see that coming, because you've obviously missed a lot of arguments and you've missed a lot of things where obviously she's busy because she's working with the council and he's doing his job as well.
Yeah, that was a bit sad.
I was really sad.
And that affair he had in London again was...
The affair came out of nowhere, didn't it?
I didn't like that either.
So I think it's more we don't like I don't think we're big fans of Nicky.
No, he's...
I think I had no problem with Eccleston's performance. I enjoy him, and especially the bit at the funeral where he's just stood on his own and he's just crying, and you're like, that just isn't just about his mum. His mum. This is tears for everything. You know, everything that's going on.
I'm sure when he filmed it. Now, it was when I did the interview with him years later. He obviously, his dad has Alzheimer's, Felix, in it, right. But his mum suffered in real life. And I remember in an interview with him, he said, he didn't know at the time, but that's exactly how his real life relationship went with his mum as well. So I remember seeing the interview, so it was like quite sad as well. But like, don't get Eccleston's amazing. He's a talent of a generation. But
so
yeah,
I've got one more thing then.
Go on.
I would have give Geordie a happier ending. I wouldn't have killed Sean Collins, who was the young lad he meets. I would have had him go with Geordie, and it would have given Geordie a chance to be the dad.
Yeah.
He never had.
I think I thought that. I know what you're saying. I don't mind bleak endings. I have no issue, but the killing of the lad just seemed a little bit. It was hard. It was quite heavy going, wasn't it? It was quite sad as well. But yeah, there could have been potential there, but it's.
I just think Geordie'd been through so much that it was like, because it wasn't even that Geordie needed to redeem himself really, because you understood where, you know, a lot of the trouble he got into and why, and how he got dragged into things, and obviously Malcolm McDowell's character had a big part of that. But I just thought, I thought that's where it was going. I thought once he met that kid, I thought, oh, he's got a chance here to be a dad to this kid and drag this kid out of everything he went through. And when they killed him off, I was like, it was, maybe it just made it more sad and it resonated a bit more. But in terms of impressions then, it's, you know, it's probably one of the most famous sort of BBC series, isn't it?
Its legacy is the writing. I still can't remember the name, the playwright. So
Peter Flannery wrote the...
Peter Flannery, that's it.
Wrote the series.
And did you know they actually spent half their drama budget on Arthur and the North in 1 year? So that's how big it was.
Really?
Yeah. So I think they had the budget of like 9 million a year for drama, and he blew half it on this programme. So they were committed to it. Impression wise, you've just got to say that cast, you know, the Eccleston, Strong and Craig and McKay, it was an amazing piece of casting, and he picked those four actors, and I think they just really threw their heart and soul into all four of them.
Yeah, I think the supporting cast alone, if you just knew some of the names that were in there, you'd want to watch it, wouldn't you, as well? All right, we're going to move on then.
Well, just a little well-known points. Danny Boyle was earmarked to come and actually be the director, because just before this, Eccleston was in Shallow Grave with Danny Boyle, and Eccleston had just been cast, and Danny Boyle was like, "Oh, I'm really interested in that," and he was actually tagged into to take it. But the success of Shallow Grave meant he was managed to get Trainspotting up and running, so he backed out.
Right.
Love to have seen what he could have done with it. At
the sake of losing Trainspotting. It's worked out.
No, it's worked out, but it would have been
interesting.
Like, I think,
would you let him do the prequel?
Don't know.
It's an idea, isn't it? You know, if they ever did a prequel series, give it to Danny Boyle.
Well, just as another subplot, the writer has since done he redid a version for Radio 4 as a play, and he's done an extra episode.
Yeah, there's 10, isn't he?
Yeah, so there's an extra episode he wrote with. It wasn't this cast, obviously, but it does catch up with them. So I'll be intrigued to actually go back and see if we can dig that out from the iPlayer or something. Yeah.
So we've got a new feature for Boxset 3.
The mystery box is no more.
Yeah, the mystery box is gone. It's not even in the room anymore. We're going to go with a quick fire round.
Oh.
It's 5 questions, and I've got to take your first answer.
First answer.
And you can't think too long. You get 2 seconds to answer. You ruined one of the questions, because when we come up with quick fire, you said, for example, Bond or Doctor Who, and I'd already written that down as a question, so I was like, right, I'm going to have to change it. So, I'd probably know the answer to this then. Quick fire then. Eccleston or Craig?
Craig.
North or South?
North.
60s, 70s music or 80s, 90s music?
Oh, 60s, 70s.
British or American dramas?
American.
For this, a prequel or a sequel?
A sequel.
Yeah.
I'd love to know where they are, all the characters.
Yeah. as much as the unlikable.
Yes, yeah.
We
Well,
like
that's
to
real
see where
life,
they
isn't
are.
it? Do you know what I mean? We're not perfect. It was flaws and all. I mean, that's why it was just an epic. It was really brave for BBC to make that programme. I don't think they've done anything really like that, you know. And obviously it's right on a backdrop of literally this was just before Tony Blair got into government. It was the end of Tory government, and very interesting times. It's a great piece, great writing.
How can we watch it then?
I watched it on iPlayer I watched it couple of months back now. I don't know if it's still on there. You can get it on BritBox.
It's still on iPlayer as we speak today.
It's still there.
Yeah, I watched the last episode only kind of recently, because like I say, I'd never seen it. So, if you like this type of drama, this type of series, what else would you like? I'll go first. Yeah, I went with fictional regional TV shows.
Okay.
Because obviously this is set up there. Boys from the Black Stuff.
Yes.
Bernard Hill from 1982. I've gone with the Full Monty and the Full Monty TV show.
I haven't seen the TV show
I
yet.
haven't, with Robert Carlyle and Mark Addy. As I say, every time Mark Addy comes up, once had a pee next to Mark Addy in a pub. Happy Valley.
The Sarah Lancashire.
Yeah, from West Yorkshire was Sally Wainwright. And that's a brilliant series. I'll be the same pet.
Yeah.
Again, another North East one. Timothy Spall, who was in Harry Potter.
Yes.
Another link. Jimmy Nail and Tim Healy were in that. And I've gone with, because I think it's one of the series that I think you automatically think of London. I've just gone with Only Fools and Horses. Because everyone knows kind of South East London because of them. They know Peckham, Hookey Street, you know. I just think if you're thinking of a regional TV show, that's the one that
I think
springs to mind.
if you go with Newcastle, you've got to chuck Biker Grove in there.
Biker Grove, yeah. And just because it's a link to another episode, David Jason, obviously he's in Only Fools and Horses. Nicholas Lyndhurst, who's going to be in the new Frasier, which we spoke about as well. And then I've just gone with movies or series that are about friends, basically. We put it on Instagram. July 30th was International Day of Friendship. So obviously Friends the TV series, which we all know. Banshees of Inisherin.
Yeah, we went to see that, didn't we?
Bridesmaids.
I've still got to say, that moment where he was told he didn't want to be his friend anymore.
Yeah.
It was...
It's his face.
Colin Farrell. Heartbreaking Colin Farrell. Like, you literally... That acting in that one moment is breathtaking. Like, if you don't think Colin Farrell is a good actor, just watch that film.
That's great.
It's brilliant.
I've gone with Bridesmaids, which obviously was a previous one, and then just two more, because these sort of span decades. And it's about friends. The Bill and Ted films, you know, over 30 years ago, isn't it? We got kind of a sequel recently, starring Keanu Reeves from The Matrix.
Never seen it.
Jesus Christ. And then Jane Silent Bob movies.
Yes.
Because, Jane Silent Bob were first kind of in Clerks, coming up to like 30 years ago, and then done Strike Back and Reboot. So they're kind of movies about like friends. So what have you gone with?
A couple of themes I've got TV and films that span decades. Picked a couple. There's one, Blackadder.
Oh, that's an excellent show.
Yes, because obviously it goes through different stages of history. And Rome, the TV one about...
Yeah, so I haven't seen that. He's just recently passed away as well.
Yeah, I remember watching a few episodes back in the day, and I always think it's one of them. Because I think there's only 2 series. I've always thought I'd want to come back to that because there's some hell of a performance by a few actors in there. So that's definitely on my list. As far as when it goes to films that span decades, I've got to go with Goodfellas.
Yeah.
Forrest Gump.
Another good shout, yeah.
City of God. Another shout.
Podcast episodes, yeah.
And while it's so on topic at the moment, Oppenheimer.
Which we just went to see last week, didn't we?
Which we saw was a fantastic film. And then I've also got, with you went the Friends theme, I went with films and TV that centres around a group of friends who overcome in life. And my choices are Community, Young Guns, IT Crowd, City of God, Stand By Me.
These all ring a bell.
And I'm going to end the show on where we began, Band of Brothers.
Brilliant. So go revisit Boxset 1 and 2.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks for listening. That was Boxset 3, Episode 1, Our Friends in the North, and you should watch it if you can.
This was a Watch It If You Can production, executive produced by Kenny, our Val's lad, on Wake Experience.
Don't forget to follow, rate and share from wherever you get your podcasts.